Last October, Tyson Foods announced that Noel White would take the helm as CEO of the protein and prepared foods company based in Springdale, Arkansas. For those of us following Arkansas's economy, we've watched Tyson Foods grow and grow and grow over the years. Today, it's a $40 billion plus company in terms of revenues. Noel White and I sat down in the company's headquarters to learn more about his journey to his current role and where he sees the company hatching more opportunity. First of all, tell me, you are a Des Moines, Iowa native.
Correct.
What was it like growing up in Des Moines? What did you do in your childhood in Des Moines?
It was stereotypical upbringing. We lived in a suburb of Des Moines. I'm the middle of 3 children. I have an older brother, 3 years older than me, and I have a sister that's 3 years younger than I am. Fantastic parents.
What'd they do?
My mother was a housewife. She took care of the kids, took care of the household, and my father owned a monument company in Des Moines. And hardworking, we were middle-income family. And this was in the 1960s, 1970s, so very active, you know, from outdoors and neighbors and friends, and it was a terrific upbringing.
Yeah. So I'm sure as a kid you were thinking to yourself, I would like to be the CEO of a $40 billion meat company someday. What kind of led you in your education to study what you did, and how did you come into the meat business to begin with?
Well, I knew I wanted to be in business from the time that I entered college in some form. I didn't know exactly what. I went to college in northern Minnesota, in Bemidji, Minnesota,
Yep.
and graduated with a business degree, and considered a number of different job opportunities, and went to work for Hormel Foods, which was based out of Austin, Minnesota. So that was my first job, which got me into the food industry.
What, were you like an accountant, or what were you doing?
I was in the sales area when I joined Hormel. First position was in Montgomery, Alabama, and spent about a year in Montgomery and loved it. And then was asked to transfer to Oklahoma City, and spent about 2.5 years in Oklahoma City, where I met my wife, who also worked for Hormel. And I was about to be transferred again, and was approached by a company by the name of IBP, which had been in the beef business for a number of years, and was just entering the pork business. This was in 1983. Decided to make the change, left Hormel, went to work for IBP. My wife, my current wife, we got engaged and was married the same year in 1983. So we spent 3 years in Storm Lake, Iowa, which was the site of the first pork facility for IBP, and then relocated to what was then the headquarters of IBP in 1986. And then subsequent to that, Tyson acquired IBP in 2001.
And you've been with Tyson ever since?
Since then.
Who were some of your mentors, some people that maybe helped shape and influence you to push you in this direction of management where you are now?
There's so many of them. There was, I've had the great fortune of working for, you know, a number of great leaders. I've had a number of mentors. Really, I can't think of somebody that I've worked for that I didn't learn something from and drew you know, tremendous experience from. In the early days, there was a gentleman with IBP who was our CEO and chairman by the name of Bob Peterson, who was a very dynamic type individual that I got to know quite well. I knew his son extremely well, and we happened to live in the same area. And then through the course of years, I've worked for a number of people. Gene Lehman, Jim Lochner, Dick Bond, John Tyson. So there's been a number of people that I've worked for that have been positive influences on me.
I know it's like telling me which one is your favorite child, so I'm not going to press you on any particular mentor there. I'm just wondering who were some of those big influences there. Tell me what you think has prepared you for this role as CEO of Tyson Foods.
I think it's probably the cumulative effect of the different positions that I have been in. So I've spent time in various portions of our business. So obviously I've spent a fair amount of time in our pork business. I've spent a number of years in our beef business. I managed our poultry business for a little over 3 years, managed our international business for a year. So there's various aspects of the business that I've been involved in that has given me a very broad exposure to all the different types of businesses that we operate in.
Tell me where we are in this transformation that you guys often talk about. You're going, you have a huge commodity side to this business, which is your beef, your poultry, your pork. You've got the prepared foods division, which is really where we're seeing a lot of growth and some bigger margins from what you've seen in the past. Are we kind of, if we use a baseball game metaphor here, are we in the early innings? Are we in the mid innings? Are we in the late innings in terms of where this transformation of this is coming?
No, I think we're probably in the early innings of the transformation. And it really started in a substantial way with the acquisition of Hillshire, which has been almost 5 years ago now. So we've gone from a business that represented a fairly small portion of our total sales to a fairly significant portion. I mean, today our prepared food sales are between $9 and $10 billion, and we've gone from relatively small earnings base of 1-2% to the 11-12% range, which represents about $1 billion in earnings. So it's someplace just short of a third of what our total earnings have been. So there's been a significant change over the course of the last 5 years.
I know I'm not the first person that's asked this question, but do you see things getting to the point where prepared foods becomes the most dominant portion of the business here?
I think over the course of time it could. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to have to be consistent growth rather than sizable, substantial growth at one time, being a $40 billion plus business. The number of acquisitions that we would need to make, or the amount of organic growth that we would need to enjoy would be, it's likely going to take some time for us to get to that point. But that is the intent, is to continue to grow that portion of our business.
I actually had this thought before I read that John Tyson said it, so I want to sound smart at least. That I was thinking along the lines of John Tyson. He said that this might become the Procter & Gamble of the food business in terms of the different brands that Tyson Food used to associate with, and you talked about that with the Hillshire acquisition. Is that what you're describing for me as to where this may go? Is that there will be these different silos, these different brands that Tyson Foods owns and continues to grow to deepen in consumer channels?
That would be the plan. That is the intent, is to continue to grow our branded value-added business. That the earnings stream in those types of businesses are much more stable than other parts of our business. The margin structures tend to be higher than what our other parts of our business are. So that is where the growth would be, yes.
At the same time, you still have to focus on the commodity side of the business. It's still driving a lot of revenue.
Absolutely. It's still a sizable portion of our business. Right. So yes, and it has to be tightly managed because the margin structures are relatively low.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I mean, do you worry about things when you look at, say, trends in agriculture where there are fewer people who, younger generations that are wanting to stay with family farms? You've got this business model where you guys contract with a lot of your growers. Do you see that changing in a pretty seismic way over the next decade to 2 decades? Is that something that keeps you up at night?
I don't think on the supplier side that would be a primary concern. I mean, we are virtually integrated at this point, so we are not vertically integrated, but we do have, in different parts of our businesses, different types of supply agreements. So within our pork business, we own less than 5% of our production. So we are dependent on small independent producers or independent producers for something in excess of 95% of our total supply. In our cattle business, we do business with feedlots, which are independent suppliers. And then obviously in our poultry business, we have contract growers that supply us the chickens that we process every week. So different parts of our business are different, but I don't have a great concern that animal agriculture from a supply standpoint is going to change in any substantial way, at least in the foreseeable future. The biggest change is going to come on the demand side, that not necessarily demand within the United States, but on a global basis. So we project, and outside independent groups would predict that about 90% of the growth in protein demand will be outside the United States, and about 60% of that will be in Asia.
Will that be traditional Tyson products, or will that be new products? Because I know alternative proteins is another area that you guys are expanding in. That may be more of a domestic market, but does that also have potential internationally as well?
Absolutely. In fact, alternative proteins is growing at a faster rate in other parts of the world than what it is here in the United States.
Well, what is that? What is that for people that don't know what alternative proteins are?
Okay, alternative proteins would be either some type of plant-based protein, or it might be a cell-based protein that is laboratory grown. So that would be alternative proteins. And as I said, it's growing in other parts of the world faster than what it actually is here today. So international would certainly be part of the plan.
Yep. What about sustainability? This is another area where we're seeing some big push from you guys. Sustainable agricultural practices, sustainable things in your food packaging. Why is that so front and center? Is this another consumer demand?
It is. So whether it's air, water, land, labor, it's all part of our sustainability efforts. And it is driven, it's not only the right thing to do, but it is driven by our customers and by our consumers. So yes, that will continue to be a primary focus of ours.
You are losing one of your top executives, Sally Grimes, is going to be moving on. I trust that you have a lot of candidates that you will be able to look at for that position. Do you see somebody in-house? Are you looking outside of the company?
We're looking at both. We're both looking both internally as well as externally. We just announced a week ago yesterday that Sally will be leaving, and that was her decision to leave the company, and I fully respect the reasons for her decision. We will actually be interviewing recruiting firms this week to start on the process, but she's agreed to stay through a transition period, however long that
It's always
takes.
good that you can get that. So,
Yeah.
let's talk about data for me in terms of, I read recently in a Wall Street Journal article how you guys are really looking at things for trends that can not only help you project and do things company-wide in terms of your planning, but also, I mean, it helps you identify what the market wants specifically. Tell me a little bit more about your data analytics and what you're looking at, and I'd love to get a couple of examples of how it's helped you steer a decision one way or the other.
Sure. We had the good fortune of Scott Spradley, who's our Chief Technology Officer, joined the company a couple of years ago. Scott comes from a very broad background in technology, and he's really brought to us innovative ideas and concepts on how we can better manage our business. So whether it's better predicting demand on a domestic basis, global basis, it helps us match the supply with our demand base, have a better idea of both pricing perspective, of demand from a supply standpoint, on how we should plan our business, as well as providing guidance on what our earnings should be the next 12 months.
Last question for you. Tell me where you see Tyson Foods 5 years from now.
Much larger than what it is today, more profitable, and more stability in our earnings stream. So growth is a primary focus in the areas that provide stability with a higher earnings stream.
So you say larger than you are today.
Absolutely.
Is that because you're going to be growing internationally? Is that because you're going to be growing some of these divisions that you have in the company here? Where's that growth going to come from?
Two primary areas of growth. One is going to be within our prepared or value-added consumer products groups. Secondly is within the international space, which is exactly the reason that when I mentioned earlier that the demand in protein demand is going to come outside the United States, so we will have a presence. And thirdly, and to a lesser degree, we will continue to invest in our primary protein companies today that are more commodity-oriented in areas that it can provide more stability to our earnings stream. So there are businesses within our business that are high margin, consistent in earnings. We'll also invest in those segments as well.
All right, Noel, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Robbie.